Well, hey, everybody, happy Wednesday, and welcome to another episode of Flightwear World Live. And I just discovered we're not showing up on Facebook this morning for some reason. There's a glitch. So I was about to apologize to everyone on Facebook, but you can't see me anyway. So yeah, things that matter and things that don't, which is going to be a good segue. And we've got a guest in today, Greg Walters. How are you, buddy?
Doing well. How are you guys? Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. And I think actually we just made the master plan to get you on again next week. We won't talk about the topic, but looks like we'll be having Greg back again next week. And so how you doing, Kenneth Edmonds?
I am doing good. I am packing and getting ready to go. You know, I've been home for way too long, so it's time to hit the road.
Yeah, it's fun. We were talking about that before we went live, right? So exciting to get you back on the road, and sad to say, and actually, Greg, it might just be you and me next week by ourselves because Ken will be traveling. So,
well, okay, that's fine. That's great. And Ken, are you going somewhere warm and sunny? I imagine.
Alaska.
Eagles and salmon.
Yeah,
Eagles, salmon, bear. It might be a little early in the season for bear. Depends on how warm it's been.
It's funny. The one thing we were laughing about, Ken was commenting on how expensive things are in British Columbia, right? And I laughed and said, well, you know, we use the letters to sort of shorten where we're from. So if it's like Vancouver, BC, or you know, Calgary, AB, like the short forms of the provinces. And the joke always in Vancouver was BC stands for bring cash. So, it is an expensive place. But it's a good segue for everyone out there to let us know where you're watching from. So this is Ken's favorite part.
Yeah, I love to see where in the world you are. And it's kind of like where's Waldo, except in this case, it's where's the audience.
Yeah, and I think last week we had some folks in from the Middle East. We had some folks in from the UK, and we had some folks in from some other areas. And we've actually got someone who I know is from the northern part of the province, who I'm going to bring in right now. What's going on, Norm McConkey? Oh, living the dream there. I can see you. Is that?
Oh, wow.
Are you
He's on the
in
deck.
the backyard? Oh, come on. He's even got a chalkboard out there, like a whiteboard. Oh, I'll bring him in once we see the sound comes back. I love these live streams. We were just talking about that. Oh, and Greg,
Great.
you got to pronounce that because I never can. I'm gonna.
Oh yeah. It's pronounced how it's spelled. Oconomowoc.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, that's exactly how it took me 3 months to learn how to say it when I moved up here.
Jeez.
That's an easy one.
Hey, Norm, can you hear us now?
I can. I'm just trying to figure out the rest of my system as to where you actually are, but I can. Can you guys hear me okay?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for joining in.
Well, thank you. Hey, guys.
Yeah, we were saying that actually I was inspired to do this one because of a post that you had put out, and I loved it. And we were actually just talking about that a little bit beforehand. So for anyone that's joined us on LinkedIn, make sure you find that post by Norm, because it asks some pretty important questions about this whole thing of titles, right? Mm-hmm. And so we will kind of dive into that a little bit. And I think, Norm, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like digital concierge, right? I really like the the feel of that. And I know that Greg was saying, oh, well, you're giving people in the US too much credit. They may not know what a concierge is. I was like, well, yeah, but yeah. It's important. And what I want to do is have a little bit of fun before we get into this, right? So for everyone that is watching, we're going to talk about titles today. And so I'm going to put up some titles, and then we're going to see if the group here, and if anyone that is watching live can submit comments on what they think they are. Oh, look, we're international again. Hey, John, good to see you. All the way in from Norway. Thank you very much for joining us. All right. So here's the game we're going to play. I'm going to put up the first one and see if you can guess what it actually is. You ready?
Yep.
The Oxford Comma Destroyer. It sounds pretty mean, right?
What the
No
heck?
one? Oh, okay. I'm going to count down from 5, 4.
You work for Oxford.
2, 1. Editor. So somebody that is editing, right? And
Oh, I
It's
see.
kind of a funny one because people use commas way too much. I'm guilty as charged.
I thought it was going to be the one where people put two spaces after a period. Wes, you know how that like. I know that we have a writer on staff, and she just goes bananas when I leave extra spaces. And
Well, that's because of how we grew up. You started, Norm, probably like I did on a real typewriter, right?
yep.
Yeah.
You had to double space on a real typewriter. Otherwise, things could get messy. Oh, that's
For
so
sure.
funny. All right, you guys ready for the next one?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for everyone that's out there, remember, any questions or comments, join the conversation. We always love to hear from you. And especially if you know what the idea is. So I'll let this one cook for a few more seconds. All right. Chief of idea stalling.
CFO.
Oh, well,
I think you're definitely close there. It could be like a CIO, because there's always like different. You know, the kiss of death in sales is that this is really good, but we've got some other projects that are ahead of it. When you've done a sale and you can't get above the other projects, if you're not number one on the list, you'll never be number one on the list. That's the way I look at it, right? Yeah. That's absolutely the case.
So the answer, and I will put the link up here. So if anyone else wants to go out and see it a little later, I won't leave them there for too long. But funny job titles, there are like 100 of them there. And according to them, the chief of idea stalling is any executive.
Oh, any C-level.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also like good idea, not now. As we always used to say, gin. I'm going to gin that. Good idea, not now.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
All right, here we go. The next one, VP of ABC.
VP of sales.
There you go. How did you figure that one out?
Always be closing.
There you go, baby.
Nice.
I love it. Good one. All right. So 1 point for Greg. Let's see here. Oh, Chief Inspiration Officer. Chief
VPHR. Sorry, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I think in my world they take a lot of the fun away.
Yeah.
So I think they're non-inspirational people.
VP of Fun Killing? No. Chief Inspiration Officer.
It's not CIO.
It is CIO. Yeah, there you go. So 1
That was
point
too
for
easy.
1 point for Norm.
Do I get a prize here, Wes, if I win?
Oh, we got to see who
Prize-
wins first.
Prize pack.
Do we get a
You're-
Wes Wonders T-shirt?
You already have the prize because you're sitting outside in the back.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this one, and you know I would love this one.
Ah.
And remember, folks, if you can guess out there, questions or comments during the conversation, would love to see what you think some of these things are. C3PO.
Diplomat.
Diplomat, right?
Yeah.
Because he was what was his thing anyway? He was a protocol droid, right?
Yep.
He knew 17 versions of binary or something.
How about Google Translate?
Oh, that'd be a good one. Yeah.
They must have been vying for that. Like they should have called it that. It would have been more fun.
Yep. Oh, and speaking of Google, have you seen that new engine they've released for the descriptive language to photographic realism? They're not even releasing it to the world yet because it's too prone to biases, because of the data sets. But anyways, look that up. C3PO. Okay, I'm going to give it away because nobody's getting it.
Yeah.
Chief Power Plugs and Patches Officer. So it's also the head of IT.
That's old school, eh?
It is.
Patch. That was a patch.
I know a bunch of folks watching this today are like, Patch? What is that?
Well, like I remember when I worked at Corel in the late 90s, like these guys would run around honestly with like a 3.5 diskette, like just sort of jamming that into your desk just to get something, something patched or updated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember the diskettes very clearly. And one was, what do they call it? They had the floppy disk, which was like one of the early entries, and then the
5 1/4? Yeah.
5 1/4 versus what was it, 4 1/4 or
3.
4 1/2?
3.5.
3 1/2. Yeah.
You had high and low density, double-sided,
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff.
My first computer had 2 of the 5 1/4 inch drives. I thought I was really place.
You're old if you had those 8.5 ones, those big ones from War Games.
That's right.
Back to Corel Draw 3, when we released that product, it was so heavy. It had 60 3.5 diskettes in it. Can you installing software, insert disk, and tech support used to laugh because there was like a time when they released a version that the 45th disk was screwed up. So people would get to like the install of like, I got the 45 and the thing didn't exist. Oh, let me have to send you a whole new batch of diskettes. So no wonder we glommed onto CD-ROMs after that. That would seem so much better, but it's not even a thing today. So
no, that's it.
A Novell install.
It is outdated, right? Like even media of any kind, right? So I still watch. I love 4K movies and Dolby Atmos, and for a while I had to buy media for that all the time. But now Netflix, Disney Plus, everyone's doing 4K HDR with Dolby Atmos for a bunch of the new releases, right? Like, yeah.
Hey Wes, do you still have your Printfleet Suite key somewhere?
Oh, I'm sure I do. Yeah.
USB key.
Leslie has a whole treasure trove of treasures. So all my business cards, and then a few little things like that. Still have it. Yeah, Leslie is the keeper of all the cool things.
Nice.
She does the same for me as she does for the kids, right? So all of the special things for, from school or whatever, she does the same for me for work. Last one, Digital Overlord.
I would say IT manager, but that's probably too obvious.
Yeah, we just did one. I will say it's not a title that we've talked about yet. So it's not a traditional title that we've talked about yet.
In my world, I know it's not right, but I would look and say that's the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer, because everything you're doing is digital today when it comes to marketing and sales. And so,
I like that. Yeah.
So you might think it, old school, you might think it is more technology, but I think it is more like, everything to do with your customer relationships is managed by your marketing team today. So, but I know like that's not. So what is it? So
I'm going to give you a half point for that though, because I like it so much, and that kind of breaks the tie. Oh, look at Jeff Bendix kicking in. He's got a drawer full of those Printfleet keys.
That's how Wes made all his sales.
Yeah,
he had something worked out with Bendix, I think.
He was the AOL of print management software, sending out CDs like chiclets.
Oh, can you imagine the old days, when you could actually get people to let you put those things in any computer? I dream of Genie. I dream of those days. All right, so you get a half point, Norm, which means you technically win. So congratulations, everybody.
What was it?
I didn't even give it away yet. It was a website developer.
All right.
So
not quite as fancy. I like Norm's better.
I do too. And it's, in the world of marketing, right? That's why we have websites traditionally anyway, unless of course there's an e-commerce element like some people on this call actually provide their customers. All right.
Do you think that's part of the issue, Wes, in our world, that so many dealerships, like if you think of who's the marketing person in that organization, they certainly don't get they don't get to sit at the adults table, right? They have to sit at the kids table for food. Like they're never on that same level. And in any, to me, it's kind of a travesty. It's an indication. Like if you have a sales VP and that person is sitting at the big table, and you don't have a marketing person opposite them, or even what will be in the future, the salesperson reporting to the marketing person, the digital overlord. I think that's where it should be, but we're like 2 generations behind right now in this industry.
Yeah, it's important to talk about, right? And one of the things I know that even with the MPSA now, that we have like 2 separate committees. One is Marcom, and then we have one for membership, right? And we're actually going through the process right now of probably combining the 2, right? And it is so important, especially in an inbound world. And this is a discussion we were actually having where we're getting warmed up to this call, right? With so much inbound stuff happening, that their role has absolutely got to be just as critical, a sales element anymore as the outbound stuff, right? So couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. And even my title, I'm like, what am I? I'm the chief noisemaker. Like that's actually my title, right? So the chief noisemaker, what is that person, do? Is that marketing? Is that sales? Is that business development? Or do you just say yes to all three, right? I don't know.
Well, yeah, Greg's comment on my post yesterday made me think a lot, because how do you tell a dealership saying we're still bringing people in and we're doing sales blitzes and we're having success? I'm like, well, I don't really know what you mean by success. Like I've never thought that you shouldn't use a telephone, but it seems to me preposterous that you would, if you brought everybody in and there was 10 people and they made 100 calls each, let's say, and so that's 1,000 calls. Well, I don't know what your hit rate is. 70% of the people will be in a meeting or somewhere else. And so do you conclude that 700 people just aren't interested in anything that you have to say? That doesn't make any sense. And then like 20 people said they heard what you said, but they weren't really interested because maybe that day they didn't have that issue, but they might soon. So the whole idea of the marketing person peppering that, that person or that account with different information and just sprinkling it out. And then when they read on something that's interesting, you have a tree that already sets up and says, oh, well, if they're interested in talking about, print management, then maybe I'll send them this other article or this other article. And the leads become so much better. Then you call them. I think. So.
Right. So are they marketing, or is that time for a new title right as well? Right. So is it lead inspiration manager? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different ways to think about that now as well, right? Because what is the definition of marketing even? Are we even caught up to that anymore with all of the changes and stuff they're doing, right? I'm not going to give away the candy store for next week's episode until we, talk a little bit further about it this week. But one of the things we were talking about was difference between inbound and outbound projects for webinars versus live streams. And I don't want to talk about that now because we're going to talk about it next week. But there's some interesting thoughts there about the value of each of them, in different ways, right?
Well, you know what? I think Norm, you when I read your post, it was like the tip of the iceberg, and I know you know this, exposing where our industry is, right? Still, and it was kind of so I ran a little poll, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and it was, and I don't remember the exact words, but it was like, if you spend more time on LinkedIn, how much reduction in cold calls would that result in? I mean, how could you trade time online for time over the phone? All right, I didn't say get rid of the phone or anything like that, but what percentage? And anyone in our industry said 0% change. Now that would be that, there's a lot of reasons, but I'm thinking because they've never done it. Our industry, and it's not just our industry, but I'm learning more and more in the last couple of months of how effective, and I hate to say it, LinkedIn now has become the de facto sales engagement platform. Right? I don't like having just one, but it appears that's where they're at. And I'm not in our industry. I've talked to and been talking with a lot. SaaS is huge, right? That's all quote unquote inbound. But more and more industries, even consumer industry, B2Cs are using this online platform of some sort to get their message across and connect. So by the time they make a quote cold call, it's not cold. It is truly warm. So I worked at a company, man, we would do 300 cold calls, every Tuesday afternoon, whatever. And, it's drudgery. Mm-hmm. And I don't care what anyone says, they hate it. And that's only because the results sucked, right? I mean, you get if you dial 300 dials, you might get 100 contacts that might result in, 20 conversations and maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 appointments, maybe, which after 200 dials is tiresome. You're beat up. You're really literally beat up.
Oh, there's so many ways that people are figuring us out. And Norm talked about a good one there too, right? Is marketing, just peppering the world in different places.
Well, that's why marketing does deserve a seat at the big table, because they are that. I mean, there's a lot of juice in marketing now. It isn't just the colors.
So we used to stay in our lane at MPS Toolbox just and say, look, it's the software. I want people to get an e-commerce platform. But the reality was there was an expectation that the company had understood already and was doing some degree of marketing and lead generation and traffic creation back to their website. And by and large, we found that that's not the case. And, we got better and better and better at it. And we do it for a lot of clients. Not a sales pitch, just the point of it's so multifaceted. Like you're writing, you're managing your HubSpot or whatever it is your CRM is. You're doing, Facebook advertising, LinkedIn posts. I agree with you on LinkedIn. Like my LinkedIn posts are outperforming my by a wide margin my email blast now. So at least for this market, I understand that they engage much more on LinkedIn. I don't know if it's the case for everyone, but for me, I'd agree with you. It's a primary sales target.
It's not. When you're done, I'll share something. So continue and then remind me.
So I just found that was, there's still, and then there was still this giant disconnect that the outside salespeople just sold print, and then it's like, well, on the website we can sell IT, but it's so disjointed that the cost needs to be, look, back to that job title for an MPS person. It wasn't there because you're knocking it out of the park with MPS. That's not why you were advertising. You were advertising it because the last guy said this sucks, right? This is not a good way to do it anymore. I can't. And so it's like, well, that's where the management kind of has an issue where it's like, well, was it that we had the wrong sales rep? Like that guy seemed to know what he was doing all those years ago. Now, did he just get stupid, or did the industry change and no longer those tactics no longer work? And I think it's clearly the latter.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Norm. And the one thing I will say, and sorry, Ken, I'll let you jump in a second, but I will lose this thought if I don't get it in my head right now because I'm 52 years old. I'm working with an organization sort of breaking into the physical alarm and security space, right? And that group doesn't do anything on LinkedIn. They're completely Twitter. So yeah, fascinating, right? Like it absolutely kind of boggled my mind. My wife's in retail, and her domain is definitely Instagram, right? But for the majority of the ones that I've been working with, Office Equipment Channel, Office Product Stationers, Managed IT, like they're definitely LinkedIn heavy. So that was my contribution, and Ken, I cut you off. So there you go.
And I was just going to add that LinkedIn has some unique characteristics that make it a hugely valuable tool. Because if you want to find out who's in a position in a company, you can do that easily in LinkedIn. You go back to the days when we made phone calls. You had to deal with the gatekeeper. The receptionist answered the phone, and then you told her who you wanted to talk to. And if that person was in the mood, or if she was in the mood, then you might get patched through to his voicemail or her voicemail. Mm-hmm. With LinkedIn, you can find the contacts you want. I do a lot of LinkedIn mining of, looking at people I know and who are they connected to, looking for the people that I am trying to find. And it is so effective as a tool. And again, I think that in the business space, it's very effective as far as getting your message out.
Yeah, look at that. You live here, man. Look at all your stuff, eh?
Yeah.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
So I was going to say, it real quick, is that, yeah, LinkedIn, we got to watch out that it doesn't become, and it already has an echo chamber. I mean, we're selling to each other, but we sell what we all sell kind of thing, right?
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
It's easy to do. I mean, with guys like us, we're trying to help the dealers bring stuff to market. That makes sense. So that's our audience. But from dealer to dealer, that's the challenge. Now, I know of at least one salesperson who worked LinkedIn for the last, during COVID, right? She brought in $5 million that she can literally tie to a LinkedIn relationship, which is what this whole social thing, it's really tough. It used to be harder to say, well, did you get the lead from Twitter? Or how did you find out about us? Whatever. She measured it, developed it online, moved to in real life, and then brought home a sale that was because it started on LinkedIn.
I love it. So the tools are different to the titles. I know, but I don't think it's that rare. I mean, maybe the size. But if that's all changing, if the tools are changing, if the things that we used to sell, let's talk about the MPS specialist for a second, right? And I love this one because I was one. I mean,
Right.
I got a bunch of business cards that actually have MPS specialist on it, right? So I go out there and work with general sales reps to help explain what managed print was to customers. I know that we've all done that to some extent, right? That's one of the things that I loved when I was doing business development, actually working with Norm, was going out to partners with kind of our MPS education sets, right? And, that's what it was all about. So I became an MPS specialist. I loved it. And I'm certainly not anymore. And that's not to say that I don't know how to sell or deliver on MPS, but I just wonder, is that title outdated? Should people stop using that in their job descriptions, as Norm, brought up in his post? And my answer would be yes. So if they're, some kind of specialist on the assessment side where they have some of their function, I don't know what the title is, but, I'm just curious, what do we, start to call them now, right? Obviously, Norm, you did bring up, digital concierge, but are there other things? Should we still have MPS specialists? I know that Edwin Jogsma kicked in yesterday with a comment, and he said, well, if you're not selling the MPS specialist sort of title, then you're not managing the account, right? Which I kind of get, but what do we think? Let's talk on that.
So if I get to chime in, just thinking about the MPS specialist, and it was fun back in the day, but maybe it does work. Depends on how big the dealership is. I think, it gets back to what are they actually saving the customer from, and how much are they saving, and why is it worthwhile? And so I think once you start getting below 100 employees, I think there's very little value in what we all consider managed print services. I think they're just the things that it used to do. Oh, buying supplies is hard. Getting the right machine. You might have a lot of little machines and they cost a lot of money, and they break down a lot. It's not really an issue anymore. Like I know we want it to be. It's not really an issue. So for big companies, government organizations, that sort of thing, I think this still makes it still can make some sense depending on the dealership. But if it's your business strategy. If your business is tied up in you're a copier reseller and a traditional AA3 guy, and most of your customers are below 100 employees, which I guarantee you they are, right, then you probably don't need an MPS specialist anymore.
Right. Yeah. And I agree. And, the other thing that's changing, some of the things that we used to, like you said, we love to make it more complicated than it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that's changing right now because of these chip supply shortages is people are not putting chips in toner cartridges because they're too valuable. They've got other places to use them, right? So we can't even get auto toner fulfillment on a bunch of devices anymore, right? They don't have chips. We can't see how much toner they have left. So, oh, shocker, maybe they're going to have to do some kind of self-serve when they run out, like through an e-commerce platform, or you know what I mean? Like there's different things that are happening. The other one I found out the other day was that because of the chip shortage, that some of the wireless functionality on these single function printers is disappearing as well. So you've actually a bunch of devices that used to be able to do wireless printing to, now you have to be connected through Ethernet. Isn't that crazy? So, yeah.
Now the chips are gone.
Yeah.
I say we get rid of the P and say just a managed services specialist or a business system specialist. Because I think, especially with managed print services, it pigeonholes you in print.
Well, and I think so. Should we only be talking to customers about print anymore either, right?
Hell no.
So,
Heck no.
I did a converged services e-guide where I broke down the market opportunity and sizes, as well as compound annual growth rates for each of the sectors that most of the office equipment dealers are looking at getting into, right? And when you look at the managed print space, the compound annual growth rate was 4%, right? It was single digits. And the last time that I did that market guide, it was 8%. So it's fully cut down by half.
Oh, wow.
So can that be the only conversation you're having with a customer if it's that small a piece of, what customers actually need for their workflow? So John Alford did kick in here. I still believe we do need salespersons to understand and can articulate the difference between selling a service and selling a box. Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, that's not changed.
No. I still think that, if I'm going to a customer and I see that they've got 6 A3 devices and I actually look at their volumes, and it's way too much for what those devices are built for. That they're doing small print jobs on them and everything else. We should have somebody who knows to have that conversation, saying, look, your average jobs are 3 pages. You should not be pushing that out on a 65 page per minute device, which, takes 40 pages to warm up, right? Like it's kind of the wrong application. Like I still think there's room for that kind of stuff, right?
Well, there is. I think that's a basic staple, though. That should be a basic understanding.
Here's the disconnect, and I would plead with anybody to go and spend some time with Bud and Wes at Nexera, and what you will find is within this industry, over prescribing hardware is not the exception.
No,
it's the rule. There's almost no correlation between the device and the number of pages that it's printing. And so with respect to what John's saying, from an end user perspective, the issue that I have is if you let the vampire into the house, he's going to bite you. And that's so don't stop telling me that salespeople add value. They're in this industry. Let's wake the heck up. They add value to their own pockets, and they add value to selling. And it was like the exception, not the rule, is somebody that's looking and saying, I know you got your heart set on this 105 page a minute machine. It does these things, but you can actually get away with this device. And actually, you don't even print A3, so we don't even need. Let's sell you this. Come home to your boss and tell her that you did that. And that's that's the equivalent of taking a raw fish and gutting it on your desk. That's the way you're going to get fired in this industry. You get fired that way. So I don't believe that sales reps in our industry add value. There's too many of them. They're too self-centered into their own thing. So it gets back to, why did I say digital concierge? Like, what is the role of an outside salesperson? It's to come out and say, we got all these technology services. I'm in your community. I'm at your little league games. We're right here. We have a service team. I have everything you want. Whatever you think you need, give me an email, a call, whatever. I'll set it up for you, and you can buy it right away instead of going to Amazon or CDW and buying the wrong thing. To me, that's where a new sales, and that's where the value of our business can be. Some of it's print, but if it's only print, they're gonna try to sell you the Lexus.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how you become kind of like the way that you see things. You become a victim of what you're used to seeing, right? And most of the sales reps, I would agree, it's these smaller customers, Norm, that you mentioned earlier, right? 100 employees or less, and they're really out there selling boxes. I got a little skewed when I was working for Pitney Bowes and others, because my standard fare was 200, 500, 1,000 devices, right? Like going out to these places. I did assessments for Air Canada, Jazz Airlines. I did them for Toyota Tsusho Corporation. I did them for PepsiCo. I did them for a whole bunch of these, literally hundreds to thousands of devices, and remodeling this complex environment, because it wasn't a box sale, right? You know what I mean? Like it was data driven. So I didn't really see that other side. Once, the lion's share of those deals, I didn't have eyeballs on it because they didn't need me, right? So I thought everything was complicated. I thought everything needed to have an assessment, but guess what? 97% of the deals that people were bringing in, they didn't need that, right? So mine were always bigger, but anyways.
No, but you're right. So that used to be the fare, right? Smaller devices, too expensive. 3,500 pages for smaller devices, 7,000 pages for larger ones. You could do the math, but how many pages do you think? 1,000 employees. How many pages a month do they print?
Anymore? I don't even know anymore.
Yeah,
it's 5. I don't know. Depends on where those employees are. If they're in home offices, it could be 0, right? Like it's
in 2007, when I did the work with Office Depot and started consulting with them, they had seen their revenue drop because the number of pages per employee went from 10 pages to 7 pages. So it was 7 pages per employee per day in 2007. If it's more than 3 or 4 today, who the heck prints 3 or 4 pages? Like, again, unless you're in a specialized trade, legal, sending out forms, receipts, something else. You could just do the back of the napkin math and say, not a lot of places doing 1 million pages a month. And if they're not doing 1 million pages, then are you adding value as an MPS specialist? Are you really saving them enough money to make all the trouble worthwhile?
So in our top 100 session last week, we had some numbers shared, and I know that Wes wouldn't mind if I shared this one number because he's done it in public before, is that 40% of volumes are produced on tier 1 devices, and pre-pandemic, they were like 1,800 pages a month. And for that same tier 1 today, it's 800 pages a month. So that's a pretty significant, drop even just in a few years, right? Like,
is tier 1 like a bog standard 60 page a minute A3? Is that what he's?
Yeah, what
is that what he's saying?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And Wes, if you're out there, if you're watching, you can let us know. But I'm pretty sure that's what it is because it is a tier 1 class device, right?
Yeah,
crazy. But whatever it is, I'm sure that the volume differences are probably effective across the board, right? I'm always amazed when I look at the, those decreases in volumes. And then I realize, guess how many printers I have here in my office? And I was an MPS specialist. Guess how many printers I have in my office?
Anymore? You must have one, Wes, somewhere.
No,
0.
no, I
Come
don't.
on.
And just a few years ago, I had a laser printer under my desk, like a full color laser printer. And then I had a small, MFD that was over there. Now, that being said, I do cheat because my wife does have a multifunction at her store at the retail location because she does have to print off, little flyers or signs or whatever. So once in a while I do use that. But the world's changing.
Yeah, I don't think I've had a printer since 2011.
Yeah.
I think a lot is there still is a lot of utility in having a printer. There is utility, a lot. I mean, that's a relative statement, but a multifunction device, and this is kind of where I get back to, some of my experiences in doing this with an OEM. Subscription programs are so much more fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because just like your phone is a subscription product, everything we're all into subscribing and paying monthly amounts now, and we're okay with it. And so then you can say to a company, what utility are you going to assign to this device? And it's like, I don't know, $100 a month, depending on what it's doing. And instead of trying to tie this to, a crazy page number or something, I don't have to charge for scans. I don't have to charge for anything else. I repair it. I supply it. And then the company, they don't even complain. And again, the part of MPS, those numbers, Wes, when you think about it, they still have to pay to get like all these devices with, a remote monitoring system. They have to pay licenses for that. They got to pay for their ERP system. They got to pay for all of these things. So if that device isn't doing 1,000 pages, you're losing money, just in trying to account for it. So I would, I would suggest that subscriptions are a whole lot better of a way to go than trying to sell naked devices or print management or anything like that.
And I love you, Norm, for bringing it to that, because I could see Ken. It's like
I was going to say, no, Wes and I, we're not sure about that subscription model.
Do we believe in it? No. And I don't care how it's done. If it's done by device, if it's done by user, if it's some hybrid of whatever. The idea being that, Norm, to your point, it is subscription, right? That is subscription everything. And I can't believe the things that are falling under subscription models, right? I was speaking, actually, I did an interview yesterday. I won't give away, the information in the interview until it goes live, but with Chip Maselli, and some of the stuff that he was telling me that they're putting under subscription is off the charts. Like, people would have said, you can't do that. And he was like, well, I am. So, everything can fit under a subscription model. And listen, in respect for everyone's time, I know we're a little over this morning, so I'll give everyone a chance for final thoughts. So, Norm, it looks like you have one there. Final thoughts?
No, I've spoken too much. But get a subscription. Listen to these guys. Get subscription.
I've said too much. Never.
Talk to me if you want to see an e-commerce demo. That's all.
Absolutely. And he does beautiful stuff, so make sure you do check them out. And Greg Walters, any final thoughts? Are you changing your title?
No, just I'm gonna change my title. Yeah, I don't know, King Bull Goose Looney. No, things are changing. I agree, big time now. Only thing I would say is you can take the MPS model as it was and maybe apply it to different niches. But I don't know. I know for sure the print is down and dead. But I think
it's kind of consulting.
I don't know if we can translate that over.
Yeah, it's kind of consulting or analysis, or I'm not sure what it is, but I agree with you. And
I agree with Norm on the sales talent here. You know, I just heard an interview from some guy, a really big dealership, that they're just now going to start teaching their sales staff basic business concepts like the difference between accounts receivable and accounts payable.
Oh, wow.
I mean, okay, guys. Good. Welcome. Anyway.
Ken, final thoughts?
Oh, again, you and I have talked about this so much. In the biggest opportunity in the flat rate space is right now, because you can stake your claim in places that nobody else has got a claim. You can become the purple cow in your market and win some business and lock it in now.
And I'm telling you, man, you facilitate, and I'm a big believer in this, and it's not just because Norm's on the show today, but if you take a flat rate program, you give the customer the ability to have their price book for approved devices and everything else, to be able to order what they need, and to be able to help them bleed that model into other things like computers and desktops and other services. That's my final thought for today. We got to do it. We got to catch up and we got to get moving. So I appreciate everyone for joining in today. Norm, Greg, thanks for being our guests. And for everyone, for everyone that's been watching out there, remember, keep it flat, keep it fun. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.